That's what happens when you start playing around, looking at stuff instead of paying attention to what time it is. Welcome everybody to another exciting episode of Under the Dome. We are now in week 2? We'll start in week 2 of free agency, and basically the Saints have just kind of signed only or re-signed only their players. We've lost quite a few, so people are now counting compensatory picks. Just saying, well, I guess the Saints have got the stock compensatory picks, and we signed one free agent, and it wouldn't be an NFL Saints free agent season if we didn't sign somebody from the Carolina Panthers. Hence the picture tonight. We have the fullback from Carolina we signed, who actually sounds like this may be, I don't want to say one of the best, because that's a relative term when it comes to a fullback, but this sounds like one of the more interesting and diverse fullbacks that the Saints have signed. I guess going back to Heath Evans, Mike Carney kind of fullback. I mean, the guy can catch, he can run, he blocks extremely well. It's actually kind of exciting for a fullback, but it works for this offense, especially because we really have no tight ends outside of Adam Trautman, and we've kind of been using tight ends as a fullback in our offense. So this should be interesting. We'll see how this plays out. He's going to be competing, of course, with Michael Burton. I wanted to say Larry Burton, and no, Larry Burton has not been a Saint since 1975, but or 76. But Michael Burton, the current fullback on the roster. Anyway, I'm your host, Alan Ulrich, here. My partner, Sean Williams. How you doing tonight, Sean?
Doing good, man. Just living the dream.
Did you happen to see the Jameis Winston interview today?
I caught a few sound bites from it. You gotta admit he's saying the right things.
Yeah, he is. I mean, that was thunder just now. I don't know if you heard that or not. It's been raining since about noon today.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, it's not heavy downpours. It's just steady all day rain.
Yeah.
So I feel like Forrest Gump when he's in Vietnam, sometimes the rain came straight up at me. Then they start playing Buffalo Springfield for what it's worth. Then from out of nowhere, the sun come out.
And so did the VC.
That's it. That's when Charlie started firing. But yeah, he's a painful interview to listen to. And I don't mean that. How do I phrase this properly? I don't mean that because it's Jameis Winston. I mean it because he is not somebody who is used to giving interviews.
Well, I mean, if you look at it for what it is, he's probably in one of the most unenviable positions of anybody in this world, because he's got to follow Drew Brees. And that's not going to be an easy thing to do.
This is something my daughter mentioned. Basically, she said Nick Saban is one of these guys. Yeah, I know. It's going to rain all the way Thursday. Nick Saban is one of these guys who gets his players in communication classes and kind of preps them on how to speak to the media. And it's an art. It really is.
It is.
Because when you're talking, especially you're talking like how we are to a computer screen, you're not really talking in a conversation where you're physically with someone. It's hard to keep your thoughts straight without writing everything you're going to say and sit here and read a script. You kind of have to have this ability to express yourself in a certain way. And Winston's just not that kind of guy. He may be a great person to talk to one-on-one or in a group, make you laugh and that kind of stuff. But he's not somebody who can get up in front of a group of people and give a speech. It just doesn't strike me as that. And so that's what was really hard about watching the interview. On the plus side, whether the cynic will say, is this real emotion or not? He got very emotional speaking about Drew Brees and talking about all the things Drew did for him. So that part, coupled with the interview he gave, 3 months ago, 2 months ago, it was not long after the season ended, where he kind of talked about the advice Drew had given him about just take the completions, don't try and force things, don't make the big play. All these things where people like, he sounds like he's maturing. He sounds like he's starting to get it. I'm really curious to see how this plays out.
I am too.
Once he gets into the season.
And again, you're going to have to understand the reality of the situation. He is going to be under a tremendous microscope on the field and off because of the fact that he has to follow Drew Brees.
Yep.
And the average fan is going to expect him to come in and do just that, be just as good as Drew was. And the reality is that's probably not going to be the way that it happens.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And Drew was such an asset to that team, to that city, to that organization, that he's going to constantly be compared to Drew in one way or another, both on the field and off the field.
Absolutely.
And that really, in a lot of ways, that isn't fair, but that doesn't mean it's not reality, though.
Well, the thing about it that people are going to have to understand, I did this to myself too. I watched this weekend, I watched the Saints-Browns game from 2006, the first Drew Brees game. Okay. Mm-hmm. I watched the offense, and it's funny to watch it, and I'm going to load this on Saints yesteryear, this game. But it's funny to watch it because it was all about Reggie Bush. Drew Brees was an afterthought. Brees did some nice stuff in San Diego, but this is Reggie Bush's team, Reggie Bush's first game, and you really saw that kind of play out how that season began because it was Reggie Bush leading all the chants to get the team fired up. Drew Brees doesn't start leading those chants until 2007, and Brees at this point, a lot of the offensive stuff that we're used to seeing, he wasn't that sharp yet because he'd only started throwing 6 weeks, 8 weeks before, that game was played. So it's almost like people are going to have to go back to the 2006 season and not the Dallas game, but those first 5 or 6 games where you watch the Saints against the Browns, against Green Bay, against the Falcons, they're reopening the Dome, the Ravens, the Bengals, where you kind of start to see Drew get into that comfort zone and start developing that timing with Marcus Colston. I mean, they were pumping up Joe Horn a lot in those games, and because Joe Horn was the known star. Yeah. So, and then Brees was having a hard time connecting with Horn. So, yeah, it's going to take some adjustments. And if Winston starts throwing interceptions, this fan base is going to turn on him.
Oh, absolutely.
And they're not going to give him any leeway. Even though in 2007, Drew started out 1 touchdown, 7 interceptions over the first 4 games, I think. That's not going to be remembered. What's going to be remembered are the 2009 team, the 2011 team, 2017, 18, 19, those teams that went on those winning streaks. That's what's going to be remembered. So, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out, how patient Sean is with Jameis Winston and how he structures the offense now around Winston. and I don't know if you saw. Do you have Nick Underhill's? Yeah, we'll talk about that too, John. Do you subscribe to Nick Underhill's New Orleans football site?
No.
Okay. It's a good site. It really is. I recommend it. He did a breakdown, like this is the kind of thing he does, but he broke down, admittedly cherry picking stats, but he kind of broke down comparing Winston to Breeze in 2016. Okay. And just basically talking about, because that's when Breeze threw the deep ball. The last time he threw the deep ball was in 2016. Just basically talking about, how Breeze, when he started, his arms started to lose some strength, he began compensating for that by throwing more high percentage passes, which got his completion percentage up even higher. Winston's not built that way. Winston can do that stuff. Winston's going to have to learn to start doing that rather than just let it rip all the time, which is kind of how he did. What's this? Go out and get a burner Winston. Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. I'm thinking Twitter, a burner Winston Twitter handle where you could just rip on people. Yeah. Okay. No. You get a burner.
Speed burner.
Yes. But the point is that Winston got in more trouble throwing a deep ball than if he would do what Drew did and take the shorter passes and let your playmakers go out there and run the football.
Yeah.
Don't try and complete the 20-yard pass. Keep throwing it short, like the Saints have been running, and get people who will stretch the field for you, not your quarterback. That's the long and short of it.
The nightmare scenario is that Jameis makes a mistake or gets himself in a bind and immediately reverts back to the Jameis Winston at Tampa Bay and tries to overcompensate to make up for the mistake that he made.
Well, and he, I threw up, I could put this clip back up. If you go back and look at Hard Knocks when they did the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, people are going to make fun of Dirk Cutter, but Dirk Cutter kind of laid it out for him back in, what was it, 2018 was that year? Yeah, I think it was 2018 or 2019. Yeah, it must have been 2018 because 2019 was the first year of Arians. So he's kind of laying it out for Winston. Says you don't have to feel like you have to win the game on every play. We have a defense. Let the defense do their job. Don't put them in a position where they have to defend a short field. Just take what the defense is giving you and live to fight another down. So it was interesting. It was an interesting response because I think Sean Payton is going to be telling him the exact same thing.
Yeah, I think he needs to know that. You don't have to win the game on every play. There's going to be opportunities for you to do that through the course of the season, but you don't have to create those opportunities for yourself. Depend on your defense. Depend on your playmakers. Depend on your team philosophy. Don't try to do it all on your own.
Well, you're not, you don't, the defense is good enough still, even with the pieces we have missing. And I think they're going to fill a lot of that in the draft. But you don't have to do what Drew used to do. Drew used to read deep and then go short. I think you kind of take the Teddy Bridgewater approach with Winston. Look short, take deep if it's available, but always look too short to intermediate first. It's all about moving the chains. And one of the guys I've watched on YouTube who was a Bucks fan broke down Winston's passing and said, ironically, Winston really did well on play action passes. The thing Arians didn't call the most, where he had play action pass, he had simple reads because his play action was enough to freeze the linebackers so he wasn't getting fooled with coverage. And that's, I think, the key. Rather than just let it rip because I got a big arm and I can throw this ball 30 yards downfield. Throw it short, make the receiver make all the yards after the catch. So I think that's the formula for success. I also still stand by, and I know Anna and Jerry aren't going to like this, but I still believe that Taysom Hill is going to have even more opportunities to play quarterback with Winston in there.
Yeah.
I think they're going to rotate those two a lot.
I believe you're probably right.
Just because of Taysom's ability to run the football and Taysom's ability also to pass the ball. So,
yeah, he can run it and he can pass it. He just can't hold on to the damn thing.
Yeah, John, that's not happening. Yeah, Deuce likes his job way too much.
Yeah,
way too much.
That would be the first sign that the apocalypse was upon us, I do believe.
We talked about that a while back. I still think Mike Haas gets the job. They just haven't made it official yet.
Yeah.
But we'll find out come this summer. All right. So let's look at the team then, the Saints in general. We lost Trey Hendrickson. We lost Sheldon Rankins, Malcolm Brown, Emmanuel Sanders, Janoris Jenkins, and Thomas Morstead. Now, Morstead's the only player or the only punter is the only position that we have a replacement for. Okay? We don't have a starting corner to go along at Lattimore. Oh, we lost a linebacker too because Anzalone has been re-signed, and it cut Quan Alexander. So you really only have Caden Ellis and Bond as your two linebackers. Oh, and Craig Robertson, but he's a free agent that they'll probably re-sign. But to go with Demario Davis. Now, Quan, I still think comes back.
Well, due to his situation, I believe that would probably be a likely thing, because nobody's going to rush out to sign somebody that's coming off of a blown out Achilles.
No, and especially a position that requires you to push off as much as it does. That's part of the reason why the Saints didn't re-sign Sheldon Rankins, is because he's had injury problems ever since.
But I think with Rankins, though, there's enough of a presence in that defensive line group that probably isn't going to be felt as much as, say, Janoris Jenkins. There's plenty of depth on the defensive line, I believe.
Well, you've got David Onyemata, who basically has taken over Rankin's job. Okay, and then you got Malcolm Roach and you have Shy Tuttle. But you really need somebody to rotate in as the one technique, the defensive tackle next to Onyemata as a starter. And that's I see Calvin is thrown in there, the Florida, not Florida State, Florida defensive tackle, Staten. And I like him. I got one of my draft books today. This is the Lindy's one. I got it last weekend. I just had him a second ago because I closed it. Yeah, I do like him. You're really looking for a one technique, so you're looking for a run stuffer at defensive tackle. I'm looking at a guy probably closer to the third round with defensive tackle. This magazine in particular has Slatton rated in the fourth round. I think he probably goes a little bit higher than that just because there's such a premium on defensive tackles. But I like him. I like the guy from Washington whose name I can't even pronounce. I like of course, the Alabama kid, but he's a first-round pick. The Ohio State defensive tackle is pretty interesting. Tommy Togolai, I think is how you say. I butcher names worse than Ralph Marlboro, but there's a few that I'm interested in. But I'm looking at getting a defensive tackle somewhere around the third round. Yeah.
To be honest with you, I haven't even started looking at the draft yet.
I've just started. And, I knew my son would have a name, Nixon. Yeah. But I'm still looking in the third round. That's why, Calvin's got a good one. He probably will be available in the third round. Yeah, get Ralph to pronounce that name. I'm worse than Ralph sometimes. The Saints, by the way, I had this pulled up earlier too. The Saints, by the way, their picks, and I've got it all listed in here. Okay. So the Saints have a first rounder, the 28th overall pick, a second rounder, the 60th overall pick, 2 third rounders, a 98th and 105th pick, fourth rounder, 133rd pick, sixth rounder, 218, seventh rounder. Because we traded Malcolm Brown to the Jaguars, we got the first overall pick of the seventh round, which actually is pretty important. Number 229 and another seventh rounder, 255. So I'm looking at, for me, as far as when I'm interested in the draft, looking at a cornerback in the first round, possibly a wide receiver in the second, and I'm looking for a defensive tackle and a linebacker or a defensive end in the third round, with the fourth round being whoever loses that out. After that, I'm looking at depth, a sixth rounder, maybe a tight end, offensive lineman in the seventh, that kind of stuff. So I think that's where they kind of have to fill out positions in this draft.
So let me ask you, all of that being said, do you still see any scenario where they try to trade up to get a quarterback?
Only if a guy they really, really like is sliding, sliding down into the probably the lower teens, upper 20s. That's probably about as high as they can trade up to get to. I cannot, there's talk that I've seen some mock drafts. It's like 1983 all over again. They got 4 quarterbacks going in the first 15 picks.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, and I both know that there's going to be, just like there is every year, there's going to be teams that reach when it comes to quarterbacks.
Oh yeah. Well, and that kind of throws what John Butler was saying. All this crap that's going on about Deshaun Watson now. How many women? 7, 8, 10? I don't know how many women it's something now that are accusing him of sexual harassment. His trade value is going to next to nothing. It's and the Chicago Bears made a last-ditch effort to try and make the trade for Russell Wilson, and the Seahawks went, no. No. So you have to sign Andy Dalton, which you thought Trubisky was bad. Wait till you see Dalton.
I don't know. I watched Andy play with the Cowboys last year, and up until the point where he got hurt, he was playing well. I think if the Cowboys would have had Dalton for the whole season after what's his name got hurt,
Dak.
After Dak got hurt, if they had played their entire balance of the season with Andy Dalton, they would have been playoff team. I really think so. 13 women.
Yeah, 13 women.
Lucky 13.
Yeah. The the problem I saw with Dalton was, and this is the problem with the Cowboys, even if they had Dak all year long. The Cowboys, first off, their offensive coordinator sucks. So it's just garbage. He's just garbage. I don't care what they like to say about him, but now it's 14. Now it's 14. Okay.
Just in the last 5 minutes.
Yes. Yeah, he does. I feel the same way. I think the Cowboys offense was designed around, we're just going to chunk this ball deep because we got these great speed receivers. We're going to pretend like it's 1981 and we're the San Diego Chargers, and we're just going to overwhelm with your offense and have our defense just built around rushing the passer. That's what they want to pretend like that's the team they got. Problem is their offensive line is crap. It's overpaid crap. So Dalton did get the crap beat out of him. Dak broke his ankle. Ezekiel Ewok Elliott, does not like the running back he looked like before. Of course, he's also fat, but that's neither here nor there. But so putting Dalton in with the Bears and a coach that's fighting for his job, I can't see that team winning more than 8 games. So
it depends. It really does. There's a lot of things that need to happen between now and then. There's some holes that they're desperately going to need to fill. But I kind of agree with you as it stands right now. They're probably looking at an 8-8 season.
Because I don't think Nagy's much of a coach. And I think Ryan Pace has proven to me now, not only is he a terrible GM, but that's the little bastard that was giving us such crappy draft picks from 2009 or 2010 to 2016. I don't think he's a very good talent evaluator. So, Anna's asking, is it remotely possible we pick a quarterback? I think it is, but I think, again, it's going to have to be a guy who slides. And I don't know if it's going to be one of the big name guys. I mean, let's look. Okay, I'm using my little magazine here instead of looking it up on the internet, but let's just look at the top quarterbacks. Okay, so Trevor Lawrence is going to the Jags.
Yeah.
Justin Fields may go anywhere from the Jets to the Falcons to he may slide a good way to the 49ers. Don't know. After that, Zach Wilson.
The BYU kid.
Yeah, who I happen to like a lot, but I don't think we'll get him. Trey Lance from North Dakota State. Some people comparing him to Cam Newton. That would fit in with Carolina perfectly. Mac Jones from Alabama.
That's the one that I see connected to the Saints more than any other in some of these mock drafts is Mac Jones.
I do too, but let's just throw a wild card out there. People are going to lose their shit because I'm not saying we're going to draft him, but let's just say Kyle Trask from Florida.
Oh,
he's a 2nd round guy. Okay. He was pretty high up on the boards going into this season, and it seemed like it was justified as the season started. But then, of course, he fell apart, and he looked terrible in the bowl game and everything else. But let's just say he has a great pro day. And a team like the 49ers or a team like the Saints or the Patriots feel like, you know what? I like his intelligence. I like his game. If we can work with him, we don't have to start him right away, but it's somebody we could work with. I could see Kyle Trask going low. If the Saints, for example, trade out of the 1st round and pick up extra 2nd round picks, I could see them going for Kyle Trask in the 2nd round, and I'm just guessing he's a 2nd round talent. I don't think he's going to be a 1st round guy. But
I haven't seen any of these mocks yet where he was picked in the 1st round.
Yeah, I really haven't either. It just depends on how people have him graded. I don't think the kid from Texas A&M, Kellen Mond. Yeah, Mono. No, I don't see him. I've seen some people put him with the Saints. I don't see him. I think he's a day 3 pick personally.
Yeah, there's nothing that's really stood out about his game to me over this past season.
And then just staying in the SEC or guys that would be known in this area. Sam Ellinger from Texas. I mean, they had that video of him wearing Drew Brees' high school jersey because I think they played the same high school. That was in the Sugar Bowl a couple years ago. KJ Costello from Mississippi State. I don't see much of him. There is a guy who Peyton mentioned him offhand. So he's now stuck in what's his name now? The Nick Underhill's head, and Nick Underhill had him going late in the draft, like one of the 2 7th-round picks. Ian Book from Notre Dame. Not a very strong arm.
Thanks for playing. Next.
Yeah.
Swipe left.
Yeah.
Okay. Ellinger, I think, has some raw talent. I've seen him play quite a few times. But I don't know if it's next level talent. I haven't seen that much of his game.
I think I just don't. I don't think Trask is a day 3 candidate, Matt. Sorry, I don't see that. Too many teams need quarterbacks.
The fact that he played in the SEC and the fact that he had a record-setting season, somebody will take that gamble in the first 2 rounds.
Arch Manning. I don't know if you can draft somebody out of high school.
Why not? Let's make history.
Yeah. Screw Ian Book. Yeah. I watched that game, that Notre Dame game against it was the playoff game. I think it was against Ohio State. And it's just every time Notre Dame plays in a bowl game, I'm just like, dude, you need
overrated.
You just need to give up the ghost. Notre Dame is not. This is not the 1970s or the 60s.
The Notre Dame fan base may be the most delusional that I've ever seen, because they play nobody during the season, maybe 2 games, maybe. And they finish the season with 1 or 2 losses, and they're going to play in the national championship game.
They usually go undefeated. And that's the problem. It's Notre Dame.
They don't play anybody.
Right. It's Notre Dame, and they're either undefeated or 1 loss, and everybody wants to put them in the top 10 or top 5.
Based on reputation only.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with USC. It's the same thing with Michigan.
Well, I will say in defense of USC, it's the best team money can buy. When you take the money away, it's not as good.
There's a lot more to that than I feel like discussing tonight. Just to ask Pete.
It's just like University of Miami, best team money can buy. You know, I mean, you're talking
and Alabama.
No, not Alabama.
Yeah,
Alabama. No.
You're gonna tell me that money ain't changing hands? Come on now.
Well, I'll say this: Nick Saban's won at LSU and won at Alabama. What's the consistent thing out of that? It's getting the best talent.
By the time his career is over, as much as it hurts me physically to say this, when his career is over, he will go down, hands down, as the greatest college football coach ever.
Absolutely.
And it's, like I say, it hurts me to say that because I hate him so bad, but it's absolutely the truth. He's earned it.
And you look at granted, not all the Alabama defenders and offensive players have succeeded in the NFL, but the ones that have, especially the receivers, they're not just great receivers at Alabama; they're great receivers in the NFL too.
Yeah.
So it's they haven't had a great quarterback come out of Alabama since, and I'm talking
Stabler.
since Stabler. Yeah, really, since Stabler and Namath. And I got some people right now going, yeah, he's not Namath. Namath wasn't that good. Yeah, whatever.
He just won a Super Bowl. That's all.
I used to believe that crap about Namath, but you know what? I've gone 180 on Namath. As the years have gone on, I've gone 180 on Joe Namath, and I do think he's one of the best quarterbacks to play the game, given the era he played in and given what he was playing with.
I think it's people love to compare quarterbacks, and that's fine, but a lot of them aren't taking in the reality that a quarterback that played during Namath's era is different than a quarterback that played during Marino's era. The game is different. The approach is different. It's just not the same.
When you're playing basically on two shattered knees, as far as just your ACL, MCL, PCL is just torn as shit. And they just keep scraping out cartilage. And those joints cannot heal properly. And it's just full of fluid. And they're putting braces and stuff. And you're still able to do the things he was able to do as a quarterback in an era where the head slap was legal. Clothesline people. You could drive them into the ground. And he was told, maybe you could play 5 years in the NFL, in the professional level, the AFL. He ended up playing. Granted, again, after 1972, Namath is done. Okay. But he played until 77. That's a hell of a career. That really is a hell of a career. And I can just look at that old footage of Namath throwing, and he was the Tom Brady as far as charisma, but he was John Elway on bad knees.
Yeah,
if that makes any sense.
Certainly, sure it does.
He had the charisma that everyone thinks. Everyone thinks of him as a star in New York, with the arm strength of Elway or Marino, the release of Marino, but he's playing on bad knees. So it's just I don't know.
Any quarterback that can win and succeed in the New York market, they deserve extra credit.
And the fact
that's probably the hardest place in the world to play and be successful.
Yeah, and the fact that here we are, he hasn't taken a snap for the New York Jets since 1976, and the Jets still have not found a quarterback better than Namath for that team. The closest you're going to get is Ken O'Brien.
I don't know. I think maybe Testaverde. But there wasn't a big enough sample size there. He wasn't with them long enough to really be comparable to Ken O'Brien or Joe Namath.
Yeah. Jeff Hosler. Yeah, there we go. Sanchez, the Sanchez, butt fumble himself. But yeah, that's the reality of the Jets, is that they've never been able to find a guy with the physical gifts of a Namath. Just like the Dolphins have been looking forever to find another Marino. The Broncos are essentially looking for another Elway. Unfortunately, they got Elway picking their teams.
You think about it, and you say going into a draft, probably 5 quarterbacks are day one picks.
1 year, 1 year, Calvin.
Uh, of those 5 quarterbacks,
Mm-hmm.
on average, I would say that you find one that has long-term success. Of those 5 in each year's round one, you find one that has long-term success in the league probably once every 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, if you're lucky. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
people
It's just not possible to have that seamless transition that everybody seems to think is going to be there.
2 teams have done it. You went from Montana to Young in San Francisco, and you went from Favre to Rodgers.
Mm-hmm.
That's really it.
Yeah.
Everyone else has a stretch where they have crap quarterbacks. Some can argue that, the Colts went from Unitas to Burt Jones. But Unitas towards the end wasn't the same kind of quarterback. So it wasn't like you were going from elite to another elite. And Burt Jones is such a small sample size because he got the hell beat out of him.
Yes, he did.
So you're really talking about 76 to about 79 for Burt Jones. Maybe 75 to 78 if you want to play with the numbers, but I prefer to think those 3 years, 76, 77, 76, 77, 78 were his best 3. Goes to the post with 77.
They played that game on the NFL Network the other night.
Really? Goes to the post? Yeah.
Yeah.
I watched that game on a little tiny black and white TV. I had it sitting on the kitchen table.
Dave Casper caught 4 passes that day, and 3 of them were touchdowns.
Yeah. My favorite quote from that is, John Madden talking about the game, and he's going through, all the game plans, stuff like that. And he says, Stable just kind of lifts his helmet up, takes a sip of Gatorade, and looks around and goes, man, the fans are sure getting their money's worth today. And Madden's like, the fans? Who cares about the fans?
Yeah, they addressed that on that show that we played the other night. And John Madden said, I looked at him and I said, what the hell are you talking about? We got a game to play.
Manning to luck. You got 1 year. That was 2011 where the Colts sucked. They traded Manning that year, the end of that year, but Manning was on IR. So they did suffer to be able to get up and draft Luck. Yeah, but Rivers was terrible at the end. Rivers just happened to stay longer. I'm just thinking like Favre to Rodgers. Favre had the Colts and the Colts. I'm going all over the place. Had the Packers in the playoffs the year before, and then they cut him loose and started Rodgers. Same with the 49ers. 49ers were on their way to a three-peat, and Montana gets crushed by Leonard Marshall, breaks his back in the NFC Championship game. That's the last snap significant snap Joe Montana took. Montana took a couple snaps at the end of the 91 season, right before they traded into the Chiefs. But it was Young's team from that point on. So no, not Brees to Winston, Chad. No. I can't see it happen.
I would love for it to. Don't get me wrong. But the odds aren't looking good. I'll put it.
I don't know. I don't know how long the wilderness is going to be, but the very fact that the team gave Winston essentially a 1 year prove it deal says a lot to me. And I think that's the only thing I'm taking out of that whole free agency thing. You got to prove it. We're giving you a shot. You're going to have the opportunity to win the job, and you're going to have to be the guy that you were supposed to be coming out of Florida State, not the guy we saw in Tampa.
No, none of this. No. Just forget the E to W shit. We don't do that here. We just win.
Well, yeah, you got to be a mature leader. You have to be a mature leader. So I know this is a very long answer, but basically, I would like to see the Saints draft a quarterback in the first round for the first time since 1971 when they drafted Archie Manning. The only other time they've ever drafted a quarterback in the regular draft in the first round, but I can't see it happening. I think the way this draft is going to unfold, unless a guy just totally stinks in his pro day and a lot of teams just kind of downgrade him, I see too many quarterbacks. I see 4 quarterbacks going in the first round. I really do. And Mac Jones is going to be one of them, Calvin. I just don't see him going to the Saints. But if I had to pick my 4 quarterbacks, I think it's going to be, Lawrence, Fields, the BYU quarterback who's Zach. I just forgot his last name. And Mac Jones. I see those 4 quarterbacks going in the first round, maybe 5, depending on. We don't know how the 49ers are going to draft. We don't know how the Patriots are going to draft. One of those guys, how Carolina is going to draft. Somebody is going to take a shot at North Dakota.
The kid from North Dakota State is really getting blown up on in press right now. I think he had his pro day a couple of days ago.
Yeah. And it helps that here we have the quarterback for the Buffalo Bills. He was North Dakota State kid too. He is finally starting to show. He was taken in the first round. It's taken a couple years, but he's starting to show a development that he can play, so that's going to give a team. And that's why I think a team like the 49ers, I could see them going for a young kid and set him down for a year behind Garoppolo. Let Garoppolo play, and he'll probably get hurt, and then you can play your young quarterback in after that. So but the Bears need a quarterback for sure. So we don't know how the Bears are going to draft. Carolina's done everything but kick Teddy Bridgewater and the behind out of Carolina. I mean, they've tried everything to get another quarterback other than, Bridgewater. So
Teddy 2 gloves.
Yeah. Look at this
and
guy.
I don't. What?
I know Josh Allen. Josh Allen is another North Dakota. Here we go. Here's Mr. Evan Rude Motor in a cesspool. Best transition ever. Schuler, Hobart, Werfel, Nussmeier to Collins, Werfel, Tolliver, Hobart. Nussmeier was right before all that though. But yeah, there we go. What a nightmare. What a nightmare.
Yeah.
It was Schuler, Werfel, Tolliver, Collins, Hobart, Werfel, Tolliver, and I think that's how it ended. Collins was only in for a little while. He was still drinking.
Oh.
Yeah, because they were calling him Tom Collins. That's what they were joking. That's what they were calling him on the radio. And you know how Hobart ended up with the Saints, right? Do you remember this?
No.
Billy Joe Hobart? Okay. He started he had to come in and play a game for the Buffalo Bills. He was the third string quarterback. And I forgot who had gotten hurt. It was probably Brad Johnson. But one of them got hurt. So Hobart had to come in, and he just stunk. He was terrible. He admitted in a post-game interview, I didn't really prepare too much for the game. That's why when they go, they cut him the next day. Well, don't you know? Here comes Mike Ditka. We'll go grab him. So, yeah. Winston doesn't sound so bad now, does he? Man.
Compared to Heath Schuler, I'll take him.
Yeah. Heath Schuler.
And Heath Schuler is now a politician.
Yeah, he is. Well, do you remember Mike Ditka called a timeout swapped quarterbacks just because so he could chew Heath Schuler's ass out. Do you know
Yeah.
about in 1997? Yeah, he called timeout, sent Werfel in for a play just so he could chew Heath Schuler's ass out, then send him back in next play because he didn't like the call he made. Oakland ended his career. The Raiders. I think it was Chester McLaughlin. I don't remember which player it was, a defensive tackle, but he stepped on Heath Schuler's foot and he weighed so much he crushed. Okay, you know how your big toe sits out here and you got the ball of your foot right here. He crushed that bone. And it never healed properly. So he couldn't play anymore. They tried inserts, they tried everything. He couldn't push off with his foot to drive the ball anymore. And it's because he stepped on his foot. Yeah, that what a nightmare those days were. You know, Danny Werfel, I love the guy as a person. Great human being. But he was not an NFL quarterback because he couldn't throw a ball. He couldn't throw a spiral. He couldn't throw, and when he did throw a spiral, he threw like a shot put pass. He put no RPMs on the football. It just kind of sailed. But in college, it worked. But in the pros, it didn't. You know?
Yeah. Werfel was one of the most overhyped college players ever.
Well, he won a Heisman, and it's because of the system he was in, the fun and gun.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was a lot. The thing about Werfel is he was a lot like his head coach when he was playing in the NFL, Steve Spurrier.
Mm-hmm.
Same kind of quarterback, more up here than physical gifts, and he just was not good enough in the pros. And Billy Joe Tolliver,
he was smaller than Drew Brees.
Yeah, he was. Billy Joe Tolliver was one of these guys who's been around the league forever. I mean, he played against the Saints when he was with the Chargers, and he was competing against John Freeze. If you remember that guy, that was from 1991. Yeah. But yeah, he was competing against that guy for the starting quarterback job of. I think he was a Texas Tech kid.
Yep.
Tolliver
or Hobart?
No, Hobart was Washington. Hobart was Washington.
Pac-12.
Yeah. No, Tolliver. I think was Texas Tech.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So, and Herbert, we've already talked about him, and Kerry Collins, he was drinking. So, it's just amazing. The trash quarterbacks. And then you look back, you go back to Richard Todd. Richard Todd's last meaningful postseason game was the AFC Championship game. He threw 5 interceptions in the AFC Championship game. And
let's go get him.
That's the guy I want leading my team.
Yeah.
And the whole reason why, going back to Alabama, the whole reason why Bum Phillips, and Richard Todd got in the NFL, the Jets took him because he was an Alabama quarterback. They thought he was the next Joe Namath. Mm-hmm. They took Todd in 76. Namath was gone after the 76 season. We turned it over to Richard Todd. And he got to the playoffs because of New York Sack Exchange. Mark Gastineau, Joe Klecko, that whole group, No, you didn't derail the show. It's just we could talk about quarterback nightmares forever.
There's a lot of substance there.
Well, here's the thing. One day I'm going to have to name all the Saints starting quarterbacks. It gets really murky after a while, but, you start with this just off the top of my head. Don't hold me to this, but you had Gary Quazzo, Billy Kilmer, Ed Hargett, Archie Manning. Okay, and that's just from 67 to 71, 72. Then you go into 72. Bobby Scott starts playing for the injured Manning. 76. No, sorry, 73 or 74. You had a guy named Larry Sippa come in and playing for a little while. I think he finished the 74 season because Manning never had played an entire season until 1978 because they beat the crap out of this poor dude. They really did.
Yes.
He was injured his whole rookie season. And then after, 76 now, because Manning's been injured, he's out for the year. So it's Bobby Scott and Bobby Douglas taking turns starting, and the same characters carry over to 77. So you have Manning from 77 to 70 to 1980, 78 to 80, his 3 best years, ironically. Then 81, it's Manning, Dave Wilson. Then Ken Stabler comes in 82. Manning's gone. It's Ken Stabler, Dave Wilson. And then you get Ken Stabler, Dave Wilson, and Richard Todd in 84. 85, it's Richard Todd, Dave Wilson, and Bobby Hebert. So, I mean, that's the kind of mess that you got with the Saints starting quarterback. Then it really gets interesting once Hebert leaves, because, 1990, 89, 90, you have John Fourcade. Then you have John Fourcade and Steve Walsh. Steve Walsh and Hebert in 91. 92 is all Hebert. 93 is Dave Wilson. Mike Buck. Not Wade Wilson. I meant not Dave Wilson. Dave Wilson retires in 89. Doug Nussmeier, who was a rookie draft pick. They started him one game in 93. He didn't last long. He was like Mike Buck. They were like, oh, my God, this dude is bad. So Steve Walsh finishes the 93 season. He leaves, goes to the Bears, takes them to the playoffs. We go with Jim Everett, 94. Jim Everett's 94 to 97, and that's when you get the Mike Ditka reign of terror. So
there's too many there to list.
Yeah. Holy shit. Well, you amazed I know these guys' names? Oh my God. It's like this is the Saints were the team where quarterbacks' careers went to die. That's the reality. So Drew Brees was the exception, you know, and Luke
we got
McCown,
spoiled after 15 years, man.
You got to realize, think about it too. I posted on Saints yesteryear Archie Manning's retirement. Okay, when he announced his retirement in 85, August of 85, our starting quarterbacks of the Saints are Richard Todd. We bring in Bobby Hebert from the USFL. And Dave Wilson. That's our quarterbacks. And basically, Dave Wilson beats out Richard Todd. He starts most of the season. And then Bobby Hebert takes over, I think, the week against the Vikings. It was the last game that Bumphills was the head coach. He quits the next day, but Bobby Hebert started that game, and they won that game in 85. So, and Hebert gets hurt in 86. So Dave Wilson basically starts most of the season of 86. And Dave Wilson, my old English professor, good friend of mine, he passed away several years ago though. But David Thibodeau, Dr. Thibodeau, my wife had him for a teacher at UL. I had him as a teacher, and he's also a good friend. He used to call Dave Wilson the Antichrist. He said, I get hives when I see Dave Wilson come out to play a series. I'm like, I can't watch this because he says he's going to ruin this game. He's going to kill me. So yeah, he was the Antichrist. So it was.
Oh my God.
Oh, absolutely. Well, he got Hasselback to Wilson was an okay transition. Yeah, but you had Tavares Jackson in the middle of that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the thing. Usually you have some horrible quarterback who comes in to get you a lousy season so you can get in that top 5 and draft a good quarterback again.
Yeah.
That's usually what happens. But Wilson, I think, was a second-round pick, if I remember.
Yeah, right. He was.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so John Butler says, better quarterback, Manning, Brooks, Everett, or Hebert? All right.
Of those 4, wait a minute. Now, are we talking Archie Manning?
Yes. The only Manning that matters for the Saints.
Okay. Of that group of 4, I would go Everett, Brooks, Manning, and Aber.
Okay. I would here's of those four, Archie Manning was most talented. Okay. Most talented player. He also had the worst coaching. So statistically, Manning doesn't compete with two of those, Everett and Brooks. He competes somewhat favorably with Aber. Aber was not as good as people think he was.
No.
It's funny. Aber and Brooks, both of them, you look at those two guys, and if you ask 9 Saints fans out of 10, they're going to say Aber was a better quarterback than Aaron Brooks. And the opposite is true.
I disagree. I disagree completely. I think Aaron Brooks, excuse me, I think Aaron Brooks is probably one of the most underrated of the Saints quarterbacks.
Well, yeah. And that's why I'm saying most Saints fans will look at the careers of Bobby Hebert and the career of Aaron Brooks and say Bobby Hebert was the better quarterback because he was a Cajun. He's from Louisiana. The Saints won a lot because of the Dome Patrol, and they're going to remember Aaron Brooks' backward pass against, ironically, the San Diego Chargers and Drew Brees. So statistically, Aaron Brooks was a better quarterback than Bobby Hebert. If I ranked them, I would probably rank them purely on wins. It would be Brooks. No, I shouldn't say purely on wins. I should just say I'm going to put Manning ahead of Hebert just because that's how I feel. All right. I think Everett was underrated as a quarterback. Granted it was a lot of garbage time points, but I thought in 1995 that was Everett's year to really take the next step. If we would have had a better draft, if we would have drafted Eddie George from Ohio State in 96, I think that's the year, and we would have kept Wesley Walls and Quinn Early. I think that's the year the Saints take that step and get back to the playoffs. I don't know how well they do, but you give him Everett instead of Mario Bates, you give Jim Everett Eddie George to hand off to, and you keep those receiving weapons. I think that's the year Everett probably takes that step and wins a playoff game for the Saints.
Yeah, agreed.
Because I thought 96, there was too many things that went wrong that year. That's
to me, that's the thing that about these talented Saints quarterbacks. When we had a talented quarterback, we never had the pieces around until Brees. We never had the pieces around them for them to be successful.
Yeah. You look at Archie Manning's career, and I always point to 78 and 79 seasons because 80 is an outlier only because Archie's just throwing the ball because we have no running game left. We're throwing the ball just to stay competitive. But when Archie got Henry Childs and Wes Chandler and Ike Harris, and he had Conrad Dobler and Emmanuel Sanders and John Hill on the offensive line, and when Chuck Muncie was sober and Tony Galbraith, you actually had an offense that could do some stuff. Now, granted, Archie was, by this point, the bad habits are ingrained in the system. He's throwing the ball more sidearm because of injuries. He's not as accurate as you would want him to be, but I thought he played better, and they were really building something, except you had Don Reese on drugs. He was defensive end. You had Chuck Muncie on drugs. That team was a house of cards, and that's what happened to that. That's why 1980, part of the reason why 1980 happened. And that, for the record, 1980 is the Aints team. That's the only team that's the Aints team, not 2005 to 1967. That's not all Aints. Aints is the 1-15 drug team. That's it.
Yeah.
In 1980. People were burning their bags in 1983. That's when the Who Dat chant started. 83 with Bum Phillips, that was the year everybody thought that they were going to get to the playoffs and stuff. So that's the difference on that team. Bobby Hebert, I thought was wasted. And I think because of the way that Jim Finks built teams, because he was building that team just like he built the Minnesota Vikings in the 60s and the early 70s, where the quarterback was the last or the least important piece of that team. You know, you think about the Minnesota Vikings in the 60s and the early 70s before they brought Fran Tarkenton back. When you had Joe Kapp, who took him to the Super Bowl in 1970, when you had Gary Quazzo starting for him, he felt, and then you go back to Tommy Kramer too. Finks felt that quarterbacks weren't that important. It was important to be able to run the football and a strong defense and strong special teams. And that's how he had that team built to win. And it won a lot, just like the Minnesota Vikings won a lot. So Hebert had said one time, and I know you're going to have to go soon, but Hebert had said at one time he wanted, when the USFL collapsed, he wanted the Saints to bring in Anthony Carter, the guy he threw to in Minnesota, Minnesota. Anthony Carter went to Minnesota. He threw Michigan. He wanted Anthony Carter as the wide receiver. He wanted somebody he could throw that deep ball to. And the Saints never signed him. The Saints weren't going to sign him. You know, they were more interested in bringing in defensive players from the USFL. Yeah. And I think that was the inability to find a receiver that could stretch the field and an offensive philosophy that was based on the run. But once Dalton Hilliard and Ruben Mays started getting hurt and broke down, they couldn't run the football anymore. I think those are the things that kind of undid Hebert's time with New Orleans. Okay. He's my son's quoting urinating trees thing about the Vikings' legacy of failure. Hey, if it wasn't, they didn't bring back Fran Tarkenton, they wouldn't have gone to 3 other Super Bowls, though, to be fair. So they were right about that. Okay. That was my Saints history. I got more, but that's the Saints history. Where do I do the linebackers? The last time we drafted a Pro Bowl linebacker was probably Winfred Tubbs in '96. Maybe Mark Fields in '95. That's the last Pro Bowl linebackers we drafted. Prior to that, you have to go back to Pat Swilling in '86. That's how bad we have been at drafting linebackers. So you think it's been bad at us bringing in a good quarterback? Linebacker is even worse in many ways. Outside of the Dome Patrol era, Joe Fettispiel, and Mark Fields and Winfred Tubbs, that's about your sum total of great linebackers prior to Sean Payton. Yeah, wow. And Sean Payton hadn't even brought in great linebackers except for Demario Davis and
Jonathan
Vilma. If you think about it,
and they weren't drafted; they were traded.
Yes. Well, no, he signed Davis as a free agent. So yeah, wait till I go through the starting linebackers for this team. You're gonna cringe. You're gonna cringe at some of these names.
Kyrie Fort.
Cedric Hodge, C. Grant, Kobe Buckwalt. I used to like Darian Connor, and he had one good year with the Saints. But yeah, it's let me see, linebacker. Xavier Collins. Okay. We get all decent linebackers from the Jets. You're right. Both of them came from the Jets. John, can't wait. Scott Fujita, I'll give Scott Fujita. He was a good one. But most of it's been a horror show. You draft linebackers with 2 torn ACLs, that kind of stuff. That's the kind of guys we bring in.
Yeah.
There's 3 linebackers, got 1 good leg among the 3 of them. Let's bring them all in.
Yeah.
So
they'll play well together.
Anyway, Thank you guys for joining us. We could talk about the Saints quarterback some more. I'm going to ask you guys next week, bring up some stuff that you want us to talk about. It's fun talking about the black hole that was the linebacker position. It's fun talking about the black hole, the cornerback position for the Saints. And it's all areas that we need. The only thing we've really drafted well, honestly, is defensive linemen. And it's really weird to say that, but that is. Defensive line and offensive linemen.
Up until Jeff Ireland, I would venture to say that we haven't drafted well at all, period.
I've got 4 draft classes I would put in there as the top 4 that the Saints have ever drafted. Maybe 5. We'll go to 5 because I'm going to throw the 2006 one in there. But you got 1981, 86, 2000, 2006, and 2017. Those are the 5 best draft classes we've ever had.
I agree.
And I'll run through those names on there. And 81 and 86 really look better, even better, because you had 12 rounds. It was 12 rounds then. You had 12 picks in the 86 and 81 draft classes. So it really looks. It makes that look even better because Jim Wilkes was a 12th round pick in 81, and he becomes your starting nose guard for the bulk of the Dome Patrol years. He was a good defensive end. So that'd be a good one. We'll try to grade those draft classes, those 5 draft classes, and stack them. Which ones were the best ones? Okay. And we'll go through that. So that'd be a good one to talk about next week. Anyway, in the meantime, thank you guys for joining us on Under the Dome. Sean, you have any last words? I kind of just been talking the whole night, as always.
Oh, I was making notes, man. It's like going to class. Thank you guys for joining us. We love being here with you guys every Tuesday, and we'll be back next Tuesday.
Yeah. I mean, I got to say, as far as Saints free agency, there's not a whole heck of a lot of moves they've been doing. So this is kind of what we're going to have to talk about, gearing up for the draft at least. And I think that's what we'll start doing. We'll start talking about holes that the Saints need to address and where they need to draft. And Sean will start getting up to speed on the draft and stuff and who people think, we should bring in. So in the meantime, thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you next time on Under the Dome. Good night, everybody.